Okay, so it's time for us to go ahead and get back into our coverage over the X-Men. And so with that being said, we're going to pick up with X-Factor issue number 110 and 111. Now, this is a two-part story arc that's also being affected by, once again, Legion Quest. And let me explain. You see, in the mid-1990s for Marvel Comics, they gave us a storyline called Legion Quest. Now, with that storyline, it was the whole idea of Legion going back in time to kill off Magneto. And the reason why, because he believed that if Magneto was not around, then Charles Xavier should be able to achieve his lifelong goal, the whole idea of mutants and humans being able to live together in harmony. But the problem was that for Legion, when he did go back in time to kill off Magneto, he had killed off Charles Xavier. Now, with the death of Charles Xavier, it kind of led into the whole idea of a brand new timeline coming into the picture, and that would be the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Now, this one small storyline did affect all the different X books at the same time. Because for Marvel, the whole idea of the X-Men and all their X books was to be connected to one another. And so if you have this one big event happen in the main two X-Men books, then the other X books must be affected as well. Excalibur, X-Force, X-Factor, Wolverine, Cable, and the list goes on. Now, when it came to the other X books, you had your heroes kind of going through different types of situations, but at the very end of their issue that is connected to the Legion Quest, you did have your X-heroes get frozen in time. And the reason why, because the old timeline was going away and a brand new timeline was coming into the picture. The whole idea of Age of Apocalypse. Now, when it comes to X-Factor, it played a major role in the whole idea of Legion Quest. And the reason why? Well, the first one is that it had the first chapter of Legion Quest that then led into the other chapters that took place over in the other two main X-Men books. But when it came to X-Factor, it was the whole idea of Mystique as well. Let me explain. So, when it came to Mystique, she hated Legion. And the reason why, because in an earlier storyline, you had Legion kill off Destiny. Now, when it comes to Destiny, she was the woman that Mystique was madly in love with. So with her death for Mystique, she had to get revenge against Legion. And she tried to when he was in a coma. But the problem was that he woke up. And the thing is, for Legion, the dude has all these different types of abilities. Now, at this point, he realized what he had to do to bring in a better future. So once he was able to stop Mystique, you didn't have Legion say, you know what, X-Factor, I'm going my way to teleport you away somewhere else across the world. And so we were kind of left to wonder, where in the world did X-Factor go to after being teleported away by Legion? Except as we get into the opening page for today's storyline, we don't pick up with X-Factor. Matter of fact, we pick up on a different planet. And we pick up with a woman who's trying her best to find a certain person. Now, the person she's currently interrogating, they tell her, like, the person looking for her right now, he went over to Earth. And so for her, she has to go back home. But we're kind of left to wonder in the possibility, who is this character who's apparently looking for somebody who's now traveling over to Earth? And so now we're able to finally go to Earth, and we do pick up with X-Factor. Now we do learn for X-Factor that they were apparently teleported to the other side of the world, but they were teleported over to Madripoor. Now, when they do arrive, they land right on top of a random spaceship. And so for our heroes, they're kind of like, okay, where in the world are we? One, and two, how in the world did we land right on top of a spaceship? Now, you do have Forge tell the rest of the team where they're at. Like, hey, we're in Madripoor right now, but either way, Let's get off the spaceship before something happens. And unfortunately, you do have our heroes kind of get into a battle with a rock creature named Urg. And I really hope I pronounced that name correctly. Now, Urgs are not really important in the whole idea of all the different alien races in Marvel Comics. But when it comes to Urg, it's this rock creature who's trying its best to fight against our heroes. But while you have our heroes fighting against this rock-like creature, we see somebody is over there watching over the X-Factor team fight against the rock-like creature Urg, but they then focus more on Strong Guy. And the reason why, because Strong Guy has huge connections to one character who this person is kind of scared of, because if that one person is able to find him, then his whole entire plan falls apart. Now, we do learn here that he's currently using an image inducer to kind of change his appearance, but in reality, this guy is an alien. But by the end of this section, you had this guy go out of his way to grab Strong Guy and teleport him somewhere else to have a one-on-one conversation. But now we have to jump over to Mystique. Now, when it comes to Mystique, her whole thing still is to get revenge against Legion for what he had done to Destiny, but also she's heading over to Paris. Now, this kind of begins the whole idea of her getting a book down the road in our coverage over the X-Men, but it comes out after Age of Apocalypse. So this is just the first step that will lead into our coverage of her own series she had to share with Sabretooth. But getting back over to the rest of X-Factor, they're still going out of their way to fight against this rock-like creature. And yes, they're struggling, but Strong Guy is not there to help them, because Strong Guy right now is still being interrogated by some random alien whose name is Jordannik. Now, when it comes to Jordannik, he's on the run. And the reason why, because he stole from one person, and that would be Lila Cheney. Now, we have talked a lot about this character in our coverage over the X-Men. She is a very powerful teleporter who has the ability to teleport across the entire universe. Now, she appeared in the early parts of our coverage over the X-Men when she was dating Cannonball, part of the New Mutants. By this point, though, she's just all over the universe. But apparently, she's very upset with Jordannik. And the reason why, because he has stole from her. And apparently, it's a very important item. You see, we kind of find out that there was a music box that Jordannik has stole from Lila. And that box is very important because it was not stolen from her. It was given to her by somebody else. And apparently that person now needs that box back, because if they don't, there'll be a war in a different galaxy far away from our own. And so she is beginning to freak out. Now, something else I should probably mention. When it comes to Lila, she was a big-time rock star, but her bodyguard was, well, Strong Guy. But over the years, after a while, he moved away from being that bodyguard for her and became his own person who had joined X-Factor, thanks to Peter David. Now, with all that being said, she's freaking out at the moment because she needs that music box. But now it's completely missing because Jordannik just gave it away. Now, the rest of the first chapter is really more of Lila going out of her way to take care of a certain problem, the rock-like creature. And let me explain why, because we do learn the rock-like creature came from an egg that she had stolen a while ago from a different planet. And so you have her being able to teleport over to where the battle was at, grab the creature, and take it back home. And so the day is saved there. But let's not forget about that music box that apparently is really important right now because it could be used to prevent a war happening in a different galaxy. And matter of fact, you have those aliens appear on Earth, and they came there to talk to Lila about the whole idea of where is that box that you were supposed to keep a hold of. And so as we get into the next chapter, the first few pages are really more about the idea of this alien race known as the Kalanti wanting their music box back, which is also called a harmonium. And so they're asking Lila, hey, where is the box that you were supposed to keep safe? Now, for Lila, she has no idea where. The last thing she was told was that Jordan just gave it away, or most likely left it at a nearby junkyard. And so for Lila, she has to lie to them and say, hey, listen, I still have it. I just got to figure out where I put it at. But in reality, she had completely lost it. Now, at first, they did not want to let Lila go because they did not trust her. But they said, hey, listen, if you say you have it, then go ahead and give it back to us. Now, for X-Factor, they also now have to get involved because, well, they were nearby, but also because you had the Kalanti sent out 6 different diamond bombs across Madripoor and say, hey, listen, if we don't get that item back soon, these bombs are going to blow up the entire city. And so you have forced, okay, listen, how about this? Half of us go to find that item, while the rest of us stay behind to find a way to stop these diamonds from actually blowing up in our face. So you have our heroes split up into 2 teams to handle both objectives. But now we have to jump over to Val Cooper, who is currently in Washington, D.C. Now for Val, she's kind of wondering where in the world is X-Factor at? But while waiting for X-Factor, she sees Jamie Maddox. Now this is huge because in an earlier storyline we had covered, he had officially died. But the thing is, we're beginning to figure out that maybe that could have been one of his clones who had died in the past, or this is another clone who has the ability to live on even though the host is no longer around. But either way for Val, when she tries her best to catch up to him, a car gets in her way and unfortunately he disappears. And so for Val, she's kind of wondering what in the world is going on here. But getting back over to our heroes, you do have Polaris, Lila, and Strong Guy go over to a junkyard in a completely different planet where, of course, Jordan left the item at. And so when they do arrive, they do fight against the owner of that junkyard, but also a creature that was hidden in the junkyard as well. But while you have Strong Guy being able to hold off that creature, and you didn't have Polaris helping out Lila to find the item, you do have our heroes being able to find the actual item. They find the harmonium, and now most likely they can give it back over to the Lecanti before things go south back on Earth. Now for the rest of X-Factor, they're still on Earth right now trying their best to deal with all the different bombs that was placed around Madripoor. Now luckily they have Forge on their side, and so Forge was able to find a way to defuse the bombs. The problem is that he has to do the bombs one at a time. So currently we're seeing him tackle 1 bomb at the moment, which it does work, but the thing is there's still 5 more to go. Now, I kind of want to shift our focus onto Strong Guy here because somebody recently had commented on the idea of me doing a video highlighting the moment where you have Strong Guy having a heart attack. This is the moment right here, really at the end of this book. But you see, when it comes to Strong Guy, he has the ability to have super strength. But the way it works is a tad bit different than other heroes out there. Let me explain. So for Strong Guy, he has to absorb kinetic energy as a way to get stronger. But there is a limit because if he does not try to release that energy that he has absorbed, then most likely it's putting a lot of pressure on his heart and the rest of his body as well. And the reason why I'm saying that right now, because you have Strong Guy absorbing a whole lot of kinetic energy fighting against that creature at the junkyard on a different planet. And so when you have Lila and the rest of the team go back to Earth, you have the rest of his team, X-Factor, looking like, dude, you are huge. What in the world is going on? Because he had absorbed so much kinetic energy. And so with them now being back on Earth, you didn't have Lila being able to hand over their item. And you have the Kalanti just leave because, hey, they got what they wanted. But unfortunately, there was still one bond left behind, and it did appear right next to Lila. And so you have Strong Guy go out of his way to use his body mass to cover up the entire explosion. Now, with that happening, he did absorb more kinetic energy, and he begins to feel a huge amount of pain. He has to find a way to release all that kinetic energy inside his body. But the problem is, while trying to do that, he begins to have a heart attack. Now, like I said at the very beginning of this video, that this storyline and other X books around this time, they were all connected to Legion Quest. So when it came to Legion, when he had killed off Charles Xavier, he had also killed off the old timeline to bring in a new timeline, the Age of Apocalypse timeline. And so, of course, we're now kind of looking at the idea of this old timeline just going away and a brand new one coming into the picture, with our heroes now being frozen in time. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.